It gives me immense pleasure to welcome our guest speaker and recipient of the Rotary Club of Bombay Citizen of Mumbai Award, Mr. Iqbal Singh Chahal, Commissioner of Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation. Mr. Chahal will address us on challenges faced during the COVID-19 pandemic and the upcoming challenges for distribution of the vaccine. May I now request Honorary Secretary Sajjan Israni to please read the birthday announcements.
Thank you, Fali. Members celebrating their birthdays during the week. On 4th February, Rotarian Madhusudan Daga. On 6th February, Rotarian Ashok Gokal. And on 7th February, Rotarian Ravi Fotedar.
I wish you all a very happy birthday and many more years of active Rotary service. Today, our Rotarian Puneet Chatwal will introduce Mr. Chahal. Puneet is the MD and CEO of Indian Hotels Company Limited. And we are all aware of how the Taj Hotels have led from the front and worked closely with the BMC during the fight against COVID. Our association with Taj has been since inception, and I'm sure all of us are looking forward to moving back there for our weekly meetings. Much like our Rotary motto, IHCL has always put service above self. Puneet, I now request you to please introduce Municipal Commissioner Mr. Iqbal Singh Chahal.
Thank you, sir. It is my privilege and honor to introduce the man who needs no introduction, the dynamic Iqbal Singh Chahal, Municipal Commissioner of the Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai. An additional Chief Secretary in Maharashtra government, he was appointed as the BMC Commissioner in May amid the growing number of coronavirus cases in Mumbai. Iqbal Chahal, with his deep understanding of administrative system and exemplary execution skills, effectively managed the situation in the city, which otherwise would have seen many fatalities. Acknowledging his contribution in controlling coronavirus infection, Indo-American Chamber of Commerce recently bestowed him with COVID Crusader Award 2020. He is the first Indian bureaucrat to be recognized and receive global acknowledgement for his exceptional contribution in flattening the curve in congested areas of the city, including Asia's biggest slum, Dharavi. Traversing many departments and sectors in his glorious service career, he has brought in many transformative changes, be it his stint in urban development, water resources, or irrigation department. His bold, courageous, and original initiatives have brought positive impact in the lives of many. All this is also reflected in many awards and recognitions he has received over the years, including National Water Award and Best Irrigation Management State Rajiv Gandhi Pragati Award, E-Governance Award, and recently the COVID Crusader Award. Constantly learning, the Commissioner has chosen to expand his repertoire of knowledge and skills from many leadership programs at prestigious universities of Berkeley and Harvard in US and Cambridge in UK, amongst others. Yet another side of his endearing personality is his traveling experience. Mr. Chahal has traveled extensively throughout the country and visited almost all the states of India. A man who believes in constantly challenging himself, trains himself on the field. He's a long distance runner and has been running marathons since 2004. A gracious and generous human being, Iqbal Chahal takes great pride in serving the nation, and we are very grateful to him for his unconditional service to humanity. It is our good fortune to have him lead the Municipal Corporation of Mumbai. On behalf of the Rotary Club of Bombay, we are proud to present Citizen of Mumbai Award to Iqbal Singh Chahal for his consistent and dedicated efforts and his strong leadership during the pandemic in Maharashtra state. Swati Mayekar, Chairperson of Awards Committee, will now read out the citation.
Thank you.
Swati?
It gives me great pleasure to read out the citation. The Rotary Club of Bombay is proud to present its prestigious Citizen of Mumbai Award to Iqbal Singh Chahal for his courageous and innovative measures that made Maharashtra with the best irrigation management state award, for his effort to strengthen the Panchayati Raj in 240,000 gram panchayats across the country, for doubling the excise recovery during his term as Commissioner State Excise Department, for stepping into the hot seat at the height of the pandemic and playing a stellar role in establishing systems and implementing complex measures to contain the spread of COVID-19 in Mumbai, for attracting international praise for his COVID-19 eradication campaign and thereby bringing pride to the Mumbai. Rotarian Framrose Mehta, President of Rotary Club of Bombay, 2021.
Thank you,
I
Swati.
request now Fali to take over.
Thank you.
Ms. Chahal, it gives me immense pleasure to present to you the Silver Salva.
Thank you, sir.
And it is my pleasure to visit you next Friday to hand it over to you personally.
Thank you very
so
much.
very much for being
Thank you.
with us.
Thank you, sir.
May I now please request you to address the members of our club.
Respected President, sir, respected members of the club, and all my seniors present. I'm honored and privileged and humbled to accept this recognition from such an eminent and prestigious club of the country. COVID-19 was an invisible enemy. And on 8th of May, when the government of Maharashtra decided to appoint me as the Municipal Commissioner of Mumbai City, that early morning, I remember I read in the newspapers online that there was a death on a road divider in Dharavi. Dead body was lying there. There was a dead body found in auto rickshaw in Dadar, and another 2 dead bodies lying on roadside in Prabhadevi. So that evening, when I took over at 7 p.m., a lot of my close friends and my relatives called me and they said, we do not know whether to congratulate you or not. Because it was a war against an invisible enemy I was entering to as the captain of the team. That evening, I did a lot of talking to myself past midnight. I told my own self, I was talking to my heart and soul. I told my own heart and soul that such pandemics, calamities comes once in 100 years. And maybe God has chosen me. So I must do my best. So I made a promise to myself. I made a promise to my soul and my heart that come what may, I shall try my best. And the same evening, I had a meeting from 7 p.m. to 12 p.m. with all my more than 120 heads of department. Because, you know, BMC is a 100,000 plus employees body. And in the meeting, I mentioned to them that just 3 days back, on the 5th and 6th of May, the Government of India team had come and they had reported back to the Prime Minister's office that the municipal officials, many of them are not entering into the slums and containment zones. And I also sympathize with them because that time the situation was very alarming. Like there was COVID, everybody in the air. And to get into containment zone, was really very scary. The government of India team said that officials of BMC, special health department, they just go up to the exit gates of containment zones, they fill up some forms and come back saying that they've inspected, because the government of India team visited these containment zones and they got some feedback. So with this information haunting all of us, in that 5-hour meeting, and I said, no Zoom meeting. I called all 120 of them in my meeting hall. They're all ward officers, assistant commissioners, deputy commissioners, joint commissioners, additional commissioners. Because I needed to have an eyeball to eyeball contact with my team. And I wanted some commitments from them. And I wanted to give some commitments to them also from my side. So I told them that whatever has been reported by Government of India's COVID teams, these things will never be repeated again. And I told them that the only mantra applicable to all of us will be perform or perish. We cannot just sit down and watch. And I told them that this applies to the municipal commissioner also. And I said, even if this is a war against pandemic and an invisible enemy, and there have been hundreds of deaths in Dharavi by that time, so I said, doesn't matter. Even if we perish, doesn't matter, but we cannot sit on these chairs and just watch. The next morning at 9 o'clock, I spent 1 hour in the ICU of Nair Hospital in COVID ICU in PPE kit. And I spoke to each and every doctor, patient who could speak. Some were on ventilator, they couldn't speak, but people were on oxygen or they were critical, the ward boys, the nurses. So I shared my cell number with all these paramedicals and doctors. And I made a point to visit each of the 45 beds in the ICU for 53 minutes. And I told them that, I told all my team, I said, this is my cell number, and first WhatsApp should come to me if you people face any problem. After that, spending 53 minutes in ICU, I went straight into the containment zone of Dharavi in Mukund Nagar. We did almost 5.5 kilometer march there. And it was a march of Team BMC, not of Mr. Chahal alone. That is why I say whatever has been done is done by Team BMC. I happen to be the captain of the team. And that first visit to the containment zone in Dharavi was very educative. We got into the toilets. Each toilet has 20-25 seats. I actually went on the seats. I saw how filthy it was. We went to various houses. Those days, food packets were being distributed because under lockdown, we were distributing lakhs of food packets. And by end of May, we were distributing 900,000 food packets every day. And I must thank Puneet Chhatwal sir that he had lion's share in helping us in that period of time. All the food to doctors, nurses, and all hospitals were going from the Indian hotels only. So in that visit, I learned a lot of things. I found that small medical doctor shops are lying shut, and we need to do a lot of address issues in sanitation. And then we started putting our plan into action. And after this, the team BMC, led by me, we went to 55 slums of Mumbai and containment zones, whether it was Chembur, whether it was Govandi, whether it was Banganwadi, whether it was Bappapada and Malad East, all over. And within few days, the fear was off from 100,000 people that nothing is going to happen by getting into the containment zones. And that really proved to be a game changer. And within a week's time, we had 50,000 BMC employees entering into slums of Mumbai, where more than 10 million people live. And from there the journey started. And that month of May and June, we didn't have any confirmed drug protocol. We didn't have remdesivir, we didn't have tocilizumab, we didn't have favipiravir, we didn't have plasma. So nobody knew about vaccine, when it's going to come. But unlike the West, where they kept on waiting for the vaccine to come and the medicines to be effective in whole of Europe and North America, where they're struggling today also. And today afternoon, I was seeing TV that in Dubai, today afternoon, they shut down many of the restaurants and eating places because the cases are rising in an alarming fashion in Dubai. This is today afternoon, 3 p.m. So we went on a different model. We said, we will get into the slums, do massive surveillance, do house-to-house testing. And we were the first city in the world to coin the theory of chase the virus. And this was done within 48 hours of my joining on the 10th of May. We put this strategy into place. That forget about virus chasing us. We are going to chase the virus. And how do we chase the virus? So I said, there's 50,000 employees of BMC. They'll get into the slums, containment zones. We will do house-to-house testing, house-to-house surveillance. We'll take the temperatures. We'll take their oxygen levels. And in any house, once a person is found COVID positive, 15 people from his family and immediate neighborhood, they'll be physically lifted under force, even if we need to use the police. They'll be put in buses and put in government quarantines. We had requisitioned 182 hotels within few days with 48,000 beds. And we started moving almost 30,000 such people, high-risk contacts, from these containment zones, which were almost 3,000 in number that time, onto this 48,000 beds. And we would observe them for 10 days, these high-risk contacts. If they found any symptoms there, we would ship them to hospital by testing them, they're positive. Or if nothing happened, they would be brought back. But before they came, we would sanitize their homes, their surroundings, and we lock their homes so that when they come back, they come in a virus-free environment. We moved 140,000 people, almost 25,000 to 30,000 per week, and the cycle started. And more than 500,000 people, we broke their contact with the virus by chasing the virus away. And our brothers and sisters from slums were so happy because we had put them in 4-star hotels, 3-star hotels in quarantine for 10 days, through free boarding and lodging. Many of the prestigious hotels like Gordon, Everest in South Mumbai were fully occupied with the slum dwellers who were in institutional quarantine. This really proved to be a game changer because if they had been left behind, these lakhs of people would have created millions of positive cases. Each would have become positive and they would have given positivity to another 10 more people. And later on, when we found this succeeding, we made this ratio 1:20. And we said there'll be no choice given to the person because we are going to save his life. And when we are planning to save somebody's life, then we don't look for choices. And the moment the word spread in hundreds of slums of Mumbai that they're so well looked after in 4-star, 3-star hotels of Mumbai, we never used force. They were too happy to move out. So we disconnected them from the virus. So this formula really worked in Dharavi. And although between 1st of May and 15th of June, Dharavi had more than 200 deaths. But by end of June, the WHO openly proclaimed the success of our model. And this was followed by a lot of international recognition, whether it is the World Bank, whether it is CNN, whether it's BBC, whether it's Los Angeles Times, whether New York Times, whether it is Washington Post, whether it's Economist, whether it's Australian Broadcasting Corporation, whether it's Philippines media, whether it's our own Reserve Bank of India, whether it's the own government of India, they all unanimously congratulated Team BMC for this Dharavi model. This is what we call as Dharavi model. And because of this, we didn't wait for medication. We didn't wait for people to get serious and put them in ventilators. We started moving these co-morbid people out of these slums. And under the Chase the Virus, we did two more important things. We created a community leader in each of these 3,000 containment zones. And we said that only a family living there for a couple of years in that containment zone, only that person will be eligible to be community leader, nobody else. They were given cell phones in these 3,000 containment zones. And my cell number was given to them that if the wards don't respond, they should directly get in touch with me. At the same time, we created war rooms in every ward. And we put teachers and doctors and telephone operators and ambulances and medical teams and young and MBBS interns, 900 of them, to manage these war rooms. And these community leaders were supposed to report a couple of times in a day on a cell phone call to these war rooms, whether the quality of food packets, 900,000 of them, which were distributing, was okay or not. We started sanitizing the public toilets every 2 hours, 6 times in a day, from once in a day in 24 hours. So that because the public toilets were the main source of infection of virus, we started killing them every 2 hours. We started distributing thousands of PPE kits to doctors, private doctors who were having small 200 square feet medical outlets in these slums. We said, you take your 1 week's quota free of cost of PPE kit. That time PPE kit was very expensive. It was 1,000 rupees plus. And we would give them 1 week's advance quota. And we distributed lakhs and lakhs of PPE kits. And we got all these medical doctor shops opened up so that people can get some non-COVID treatment also. Then we told these community leaders to report back to our war rooms whether our municipal officials are visiting these slums, containment zones or not, whether they are doing house-to-house surveillance or not, whether they are picking up all comorbid people and putting them in hospitals and our COVID care centers or not. So these feedback started coming from these community leaders, and that further ensured that our health workers, thousands of them, would get into the slums because they knew a mechanism created where somebody not visiting will be caught off guard. After that, we went on a massive operation of sanitizing slums. And because of that, this year we had 0 deaths in malaria. The other monsoon-related diseases came down by 85%. That is the magical effect the surveillance and this sanitization had on these slums of Mumbai. You know, this has been a very long and great fight. But very early, we recognized that Team BMC knew that it's not a 1 or 2 day or 1 or 2 weeks or 1 or 2 months fight. I told my team that it's going to be a long time affair now. It may go on for years. So we knew that there are only 4 pillars of fight against COVID. We identified those 4 pillars. I said these are basically a perfect testing discipline. Then abundant ambulances free of cost. Then huge increase in infrastructure in hospitals, the beds, the doctors, and availability of doctors. And for these 4 pillars foundation to fight against COVID, we had only 5 weapons with us. One was testing, second was tracking, third was tracing, fourth was quarantine, and last was treatment. And I told my team, let us put each one of them on autopilot. It is easier than doing, but we did it. Mumbai became the only city in the world where we stopped sharing positive test report with the patient. We coined another policy of chase the patient. I said, in a day, if 20,000 people get tested and say 2,000 of them become positive, please don't send them blunt and a very rash email or a SMS that you are COVID positive, full stop, and you forget about them. That is what is happening in whole of United States of America today also. Because a person becomes so nervous during those days, he starts calling up his relatives, his friends, his doctors, influential people, ministers, MLAs, IS officers, other influential people in the city seeking for a bed. And this 2,000 positive patients would generate 20,000 phone calls. And suddenly all our control rooms will start failing. The lines would get jammed. So we decided that let this 2,000 list come at midnight to BMC in a single line list only. And in parallel, we created 24 ward war rooms. We created dashboards from IIT Mumbai, where we started doing online booking of 148 hospitals from Mumbai through a single dashboard. So we'll start calling up these people through 1,000 doctors parked in these control rooms, war rooms in 24 wards. And we would start the operation at 8 o'clock, and by 12 noon, we would visit their homes and allot them beds at their residences. And then we'll put them on the allotted hospital beds, and we'll try to accommodate their choices also. So when we started this war on the 8th of June, after that, the phone calls, the WhatsApp messages disappeared that somebody's not getting a bed, because we decided to go with the bed to the patient's residence. This was again, we were the first city in the world to do so. Then again, we were the first city in the world to have decentralized fight against this hidden enemy through 24 ward war rooms, and every ward of Mumbai virtually became an independent fighter in COVID war, totally self-sufficient with doctors, ambulances, control, and the dashboards and hospital bed allotment, everything. And here, I would salute our 35 major private hospitals and 75 smaller ones. We became the first city in India where, on my single appeal over 3 meetings, all the managements of these major hospitals, they agreed to my request that let us treat everybody at government rates, 4,000 for COVID bed, 7,000 for oxygen bed, and 9,000 rupees for a ventilator bed, whether it's Breach Candy, whether it's Nanavati, whether it's Leelavati, whether it is Bombay Hospital, any private hospital. This was unheard of anywhere in the world, that a slum dweller could be treated in Breach Candy for 4,000 rupees a day. And this practice is going on today also. It is still not stopped. The hospitals have taken hits of crores of rupees. I think that sum total would be 600, 700 crore rupees losses. But I appealed to the management. I said, this is the right time to work for humanity. Charity is required now, forget about profits. And we must show that this model can work. And we must prove to the entire world that how Mumbai can get together and achieve the impossible. I don't have an example of any other city anywhere in India or abroad where for 4,000 rupees in a hospital like Breach Candy or Nanavati, Leelavati, patients were treated. And that practice is still going on despite each one of these hospitals taking tens of crores of rupees hit in this time. So this unique model also became successful thanks to our friends from these private hospitals. And not only this, they surrendered all their allotment of 100% ICU to BMC or for these hospitals. They surrendered 80% of this COVID beds allotment to us. And there were cases when the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor were getting into the same ICU in the same clothes, but the poor man was coming from general ward of 4,000 rupees, and the rich man was coming from 20% COVID quota, which we left to the hospitals. He was being charged a couple of lakhs per day. But we said, doesn't matter, you can charge whatever you want to charge. But they were getting same treatment from same doctors in the same ICU. This is something unique happening today also, and in Mumbai. And for this, where I say I salute doctors and hospitals of Mumbai. This experiment was tried in many other places. It was tried in Thane also, Navi Mumbai also, Pune also. But the way it has succeeded in a seamless manner in Mumbai, our example is unique. Then after we made testing regime very disciplined. I remember 4th of April testing reports were received on 22nd April by BMC. When the person whose swab was taken, he had passed away. Even his high-risk contacts had passed away, and then the report landed with us. We implemented absolutely like a military type of discipline. My father is a military officer, and I had a lot of shadows of him on me. So I told these people, I said, nothing doing. Every report shall come within 24 hours. And this, if somebody cannot perform like this is what is mentioned by ICMR also, then his shop will get closed in Mumbai. He will not function. And you'll be happy that I was taking their fortnightly returns, and till today, all reports are coming in 24 hours. Again, this is a unique thing in the entire country which happened in Mumbai. And I told the lab people who are in charge of 24 various testing labs, I said, there is no ceiling on your quotas, but you chew whatever you can digest. Don't keep heaps of reports which you can't deliver in 24 hours. So the number one pillar was set up a perfect testing discipline, and only we coming to know who's positive. People went to Supreme Court against me that this is a breach of right of patient to get reports directly. But we told the courts that, look, we are taking it upon ourselves of chasing the patient right from his lab report, his positive report, announcing him visiting his home visiting his residence, then taking in PP kits in our ambulances to beds in Breach Candy or KM or Nair or Sion, wherever he was in the allotted beds, and then taking care of him. So right from his test report to his final treatment discharge, we have taken over the responsibility, and this was not possible unless the reports would come to us only. And this immediately stopped all the clamor and all the running around from pillar to post of patients from one hospital to another hospital, because there was no response time available to a patient to ring up a hospital for a bed or to ring up to media that I'm not getting a bed, because we said we informed them at 8 o'clock, and by 8:30 we are at the residence with the bed. So why do you need to call up a hospital for a bed? So ultimately, we surpassed all these legal hurdles also, and today also at midnight the report comes to us, and morning 8 o'clock our people start calling up asymptomatic positives are home quarantine, and symptomatics we request them to move to the hospital for treatment, and we accommodate in the hospital of their choice. Then we had a lot of problems of ambulances. When I joined, we had only 80 ambulances, and you'll be surprised that in 10 days the ambulance number went to 825. There was 800% increase in ambulances in virtually 8 days. How do we do it? Because as IAS officers, we conduct a lot of elections, Lok Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, and then we tell the transport department, transport commissioner to requisition vehicles for us. So we requisitioned 800 Innovas and Sumos. We took them to a workshop with drivers therein, we put a small aluminum sheet between the driver's compartment and rest of the vehicle. And we put a weekly quota of PPE kits under the driver's seat. We reassured him that if you feel unsafe, you wear a PPE kit. You're all been insulated, but you can wear a PPE kit. And we just put these ambulances as these vehicles as ambulances, because we knew the COVID patient doesn't need stretcher all the time to move from his residence to hospital. It's a matter of 20 minutes, 30 minutes, sitting, walk, or drive from his residence to the hospital. And plus, I took out buses from BEST mini buses, and we converted them into stretcher ambulances in our BMC workshops. And now we have about 1,000 ambulances running free of cost. And we borrowed just IT platform of from Uber company, not their driver or vehicles, only the platform. And these 1,000 odd ambulances started running on Uber platforms. And we were the first city in India to do so. And because of this clamor that ambulance is not available, this suddenly disappeared in the last week of May only. Then third was availability of beds. You'll be surprised that when I took over, we had only 4,000 COVID beds. And by end of May, we had 22,000 COVID beds. We had 48,000 institutional quarantine beds, which we call as CCC1 COVID Care Center. And we had 24,000 CCC2, where poor people from slums who are asymptomatic positive, they moved to COVID Care Center CCC2. We created almost 94,000 beds in a couple of weeks. And this was the logistically nowhere in the country, this type of multi-fold increase happened in availability of beds. So from June onwards, we didn't give any opportunity to media or to the opposition that beds are not available. Then the last, coming to availability of doctors. For doctors, I requested the Honorable CM, who was hands-on CM for monitoring COVID. Honorable CM Maharashtra, Uddhav Thackeray sir, he made a Facebook appeal to retired doctors and paramedicals from Army, Navy, Air Force, government to join us. And we said, we'll pay you very handsome honorariums, 80,000 rupees for MBBS, 200,000 rupees per month for a specialist doctor, and even more for a super specialist doctor. Suddenly, we got 3,600 people in a few days, and we offered them choice postings depending on which place they were living in. And then I had worked as Secretary Medical Education in 2011-12. I knew that Maharashtra has 50 plus medical colleges, and each medical college had 200 students who are doing internship and who are sitting home in lockdown. So this 10,000 boys and girls who have virtually done their MBBS, waiting for 10-month internship to finish, and then they get a degree of MBBS. I made a WhatsApp appeal to them. I said, come and join us from Nandurbar, from Malegaon, from Bid, Osmanabad, Latur, Chandrapur, Nagpur, hinterland of Maharashtra. I said, your stipend is 11,000. We'll give you 50,000 rupees per month. We'll give you free boarding and lodging in a 5-star hotel. We'll give you non-COVID work of managing war rooms, of managing bed allotments, and managing the affairs of asymptomatic home quarantine people by asking them a couple of times in a day how they're feeling, and if they need, sending doctors, ambulances to them and moving them to hospitals. You'll be surprised with this kind of package. In a few days, by 15th of June, we had 900 young 19-year, 20-year boys and girls from tribal areas, from backward areas joining us, and we put them in JW Marriott and all top hotels of Mumbai. And they're still continuing there. And this 50,000 rupees became pocket money for them because their entire stay was free and they were put up in the nearest 5-star to the war room. And these young girls and boys, 19, 20 years old, they are the ones who have handled allotment of beds to patients online on dashboard, and they have allotted beds to almost more than 100,000 people in Mumbai. They are the young boys and girls who call up a asymptomatic positive patient at least 5 to 6 times in a day. Sir, how are you feeling? They are the ones who announce to the patient, sir, we are extremely sorry that we are sharing your report with you. It has come last midnight, you are COVID positive. Please tell us, sir, how you're feeling. So these young boys and girls took over this massive task, and they are still working today also. So this is how we strengthen these 4 pillars and put them in autopilot. After that, regarding the 5 weapons we had, testing, tracing, tracking, quarantining, and treatment, this also was strengthened. And that is how, by putting the stuff in all these important activities on autopilot, we could avoid even a second peak in a first wave, forget about the second wave or third wave. Like if you remember, Honorable CM Delhi openly have been telling in October, November after Diwali that there's a third wave going on in Delhi. But we never had second also. After such a bad situation in May and June, in the month of June, Mumbai lost 3,200 people. And if you see today's morning newspaper, Times of India, the number of deaths have come down to almost 200, with almost 7 deaths per day in the month of January, from 1st Jan to 31st Jan. And the death rate, which one time was 8%, has come down to 1.5% now. And this all has happened because of this robust system which started working in autopilot manner. And here I would also salute the NGOs, the hotels of Mumbai, who were supplying 900,000 food packets every day, thrice a day. It's not a small job to feed a million population stuck in lockdown, right up till 14th of May. And the NGOs, the hotels, and people like Puneet Chhatwal sir, I salute them for the way they helped us to tide over this crisis. And we started an online platform, a Milker, to provide this 900,000 packets. And just 3 days back, United Nations has awarded us with an award for that also. The way we handled almost 1 million people with 900,000 food packets being distributed every day in the city of Mumbai. All this happened because I would say the citizens of Mumbai have been very well disciplined, and they have been very nice to us. You see, on the day of Diwali, we didn't impose ban on firecrackers in private premises. Unlike Delhi and other states where there were total ban. I only made a fervent appeal to our eminent citizens that if possible this year, please don't bust crackers, although we have allowed crackers busting in private premises. But in 408 square kilometer Mumbai, on the day of Diwali, one of the editors of newspapers sent me a WhatsApp message early morning. He said, sir, last evening, Mumbai with 60 million population under BMC and 408 square kilometers of area, it was pin drop silence. It was like an examination hall. Not even single cracker was going up. Unlike Delhi, where in Gurgaon and Noida, on the outskirts, plenty of crackers were on despite the ban also. This is one example how I always say people of Mumbai are so disciplined, they are so cooperative, they have been hand in hand with us in this fight against COVID. And last but not the least, our Honorable CM, in the first week of September, he conceived this campaign of My Family, My Responsibility. This has been a total game changer. And we are today at a stage where we can virtually do without vaccine. We have come to a stage. And I feel that in the times of yesterday, we had only 50 cases of symptomatic who needed hospital beds. and today the figure is 48. Just 2 cases per ward, and each ward having a 7 to 8 lakh population who is symptomatic, who has any symptom of COVID positive. The rest were all asymptomatic with no symptoms and no medication and no treatment required. Why does this happen? This has happened primarily because under this Maje Kutum Maji Jawabdari, or Mera Parivar Meri Zimmewari, or my family, my responsibility, we decided between September 15th and November 15th, in those 60 days, to visit each and every household of 35.1 lakh homes in Mumbai, twice. And for this, we deployed 15,000 health workers. And these teams went house to house to check their oxygen level, temperature level, record names of comorbid patients, and give them do's and don'ts in writing of COVID fight. On the backside, give them telephone numbers, all 24 war rooms. And they made an appeal to them not to move out in public domain without masks. And they warned them also that we are going to start fining people now not wearing masks. This campaign has been such a great success that now in Mumbai, you hardly find people without wearing masks. They may have masks on the chin, or they may have a mask somewhere here and there, but nobody dares to move on the street without a mask. And we are still struggling. We'll still make things better. We have fined 1.2 million people in Mumbai in the last 90 days for not wearing masks, from whom we have collected almost 24 crore rupees. 1.2 million people fined for not wearing masks. Now, this habit of wearing masks while coming in public domain, it has greatly restricted the spread of virus. You prevent yourself, you prevent your family, and you prevent others also from catching this virus. I'm happy to say that in a slum like Dharavi, in the last 64 days, there is 0 deaths. In the last 64 days, as of today morning, we have only 16 active cases in a population of 800,000. And this is also true of almost all of the slums of Mumbai. Dharavi is only an example. So if you see today, our rate of infection is 0.12%, which means that if one person is COVID positive, how many people you can infect? At one time, it was 40. Today, it is 0.12, almost negligible. This is also one of the reasons why how this campaign has succeeded of my family, my responsibility. Then if you see positivity rate, for every 100 tests which conduct, how many come positive? There was a time when 38% used to be positive in whole of May, June, July, August. Today, it has come down to 3%. We are testing about 20,000 people every day, and only 3% come positive. And day for yesterday, it had come to 2%. 2%, according to WHO, is zero pandemic. So we are slowly moving to that regime where we are in the category of 2%, 3%, one of the lowest anywhere in the world. Then if you see a doubling rate, it has gone to 564 days. Even if you see total number of positive cases in Mumbai, Delhi had 6 lakh plus cases. To be accurate, Delhi had 6.34 lakh positive cases till today. We have only 3 lakhs, 3.09 lakhs. So Mumbai has half the cases of positive, but Delhi has till today, if you see sum total from March till today. If you see our own state of Maharashtra, Pune has 3.7 lakh positive cases today, and Pune is 1/4 of Mumbai. Pune has 3.68 lakhs, we have 3.09 lakhs. So these figures, they automatically speak of the kind of autopilot systems we created with the cooperation of doctors, private hospitals, our own BMC team, citizens, everybody chipping in. and contributing to this fight against COVID. And this is the reason why I started proclaiming almost around the time of Diwali that Mumbai has become the safest metropolis in the entire world. Even 3 days back, UK had 36,000 positive cases, 1875 deaths. This was 3 days back. United States of America last week had 4600 deaths in one single day. They have 300,000 deaths with 30 million people becoming COVID positive. So if you compare the kind of health infrastructure they had in Europe, in North America, and the kind of we had, because I remember when I had a meeting with private hospitals, I read out a cutting of New York Times to them. This was New York Times of 7th or 8th of May. They had written that Mumbai's health system has collapsed. And in the slums of Mumbai, there are going to be dead bodies lying all around. Thousands of people are going to die. And they said in Mumbai, it will be difficult to count how many people are going to die because this COVID is going to create havoc there in the slums of Mumbai. And today, we could restrict ourselves to just around 10,000 deaths in last 11 months compared to 10-fold deaths in those cities. This has not happened because of vaccine. This has not happened because of medication. This just happened because of our sheer grit and determination to succeed. And for this, whether it is Team BMC or Team Media or our Team Citizens, Team NGOs, everybody has chipped in. And I must not forget that the government of Maharashtra and our Honorable Chief Minister, they had tremendous faith in Team BMC led by me. You know, Honorable CM Uddhav Thackeray sir, on the day I joined, he made one statement to me which I will never forget in my lifetime. He said, Chahal, we are putting you there. He said, you know, I don't know whether what's going to happen because things are going out of control. But he said, Chahal, if you succeed, success will be yours. And if you fail, failure will be mine. I never hear politicians talking like this because I've been hearing politicians in the last 32 years of my service saying, success is mine, failure is your bureaucrat. But here was a chief minister who said, Chahal, if you succeed, the world will say success is yours. And if you fail, the world will say, I have failed. So that really put fire into me, into my belly. I said, come what may, we have to succeed. And I think we have succeeded. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chahal. Thank you so very much. That was quite an eye-opener. Kudos to you and Team BMC for everything that you have done for us.
Thank you very much.
I think, fellow Rotarians, we need to give Mr. Chahal a standing ovation today. It's really wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Chahal,
Excellent.
we'll take a few questions now.
Fali, may I have a question, Dr. Dastur?
Adi, yes, go ahead with your question.
Mr. Chahal,
Yes,
you
sir.
have lived up to the Rotary motto of service above self. That
Thank you,
is the motto of the Rotary. And I've been following you since the day you joined, because the day you joined, I remember, everything changed. Hospitals took in, like you're saying, patients who were COVID and non-COVID, the patients next to one another in the ICUs. And being the former dean of the Wadi Hospital, I know what it takes to do that. And from that time, it changed. And like you showed today, Bombay is the best example of a city in the world. And today, the figures we've got are because of your team effort, which you've done, And I really laud you for this, what you've done. I think I was admiring you all the way. Today is a pleasure to see you and to meet you. So I'm just saying, keep up the good work. You're a Rotary angel living up to the model, service above self. God bless
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Ali, I have a question, please.
Yeah.
First of all, comment and congratulations, sir, on an outstanding job. You're
Thank
you're a global leader, because there are cities around the world that are following the Mumbai example. Your idea of containment zones, green, orange, and red, it took a city like London 6 to 8 months to come up with the same tier plan that Mumbai followed. We started 8 months ago, so kudos to you for that.
Thank you,
Sir,
sir.
I have a question which
Yeah.
is slightly tricky because it's a public health concern, but we will have a number of our members who are abroad, either visiting their newborn grandchildren or visiting their children or away on business. And so there is this protocol of institutional plus home quarantine, which recently Delhi has waived 2 days ago. Some of our members are keen to travel, some of them are keen to return. So just wanted to ask you, is there going to be any change in that, or is that going to continue for a while? And secondly, what is your plan going forward on travel for people who have got vaccines and COVID passports in a sense?
Thank you very much for asking a very good question. I will answer this question in two parts. The first part is that immediately after Deepavali on 14th of November, between 14th November and say 15 December, 1 month, Delhi started reporting 8,000 cases every day. And they got 2,70,000 cases in that month. And that time we were getting about 700, 800 cases every day. We were getting 10% of that. And what happened that if you remember, in the month of February and March, when the pandemic just got in, between 1st of February and 22nd March, when the flights were shut down and lockdowns were announced, 1.7 lakh people landed at Mumbai airport from all over the world, especially from Europe and Middle East countries. And this 1.7 lakh people, thousands of them were COVID positive, and that is how Maharashtra became the hotbed in the country, and Mumbai became the hotbed of that. So when these cases started coming in Delhi, in Goa, in Rajasthan, in Gujarat, there was a lockdown in most of the cities of Gujarat and Rajasthan. So we got so scared. It was me who went to Honorable CM. We said that we must do something. We shouldn't be caught unaware once again. What happened in February, March. I still hold this opinion that if we had shut Mumbai's airport from 1st February to 22nd March 2020, we would have been far, far better. We got delayed in shutting down airport that time by almost 50 days. And that is what is the single biggest reason for the Mumbai becoming a hotbed of COVID in the country. So we said, let us not this thing happen once again. So we started this practice of RT-PCR test for these 4 states only where vaccine cases were coming: Delhi, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Goa. And we have caught hundreds of people who were COVID positive at the airports. It is not that it was a futile exercise. The number goes in hundreds. I can share the data with you. And these hundreds would have become multiplied to thousands and tens of thousands if we had not taken that precaution. And today, we may again have gone to second peak or a third peak again, like Delhi has gone to third peak. And we are still at the first one only. So that was the thinking went behind the domestic. Now coming to international, coming to the second part, may I request honorable members to just keep your mic on mute so we can hear clearly. Now, regarding international issue, on 21st of December, suddenly the government of India announced that they are shutting down incoming flights from UK to India because a new strain of virus has been detected in UK, which spreads very fast and which is lethal also. And then immediately, remember, on 21st evening, we swung into action in a couple of hours. We got the information at 4:30 p.m. In the first flight, we landed at 9:30 p.m. We quarantined 202 passengers on that flight. We were very harsh to them, but we apologized to them that we must keep them to check. And 5 of them were found to have having the new strain, which were tested positive in hotels, and we treated them and got rid of the strain. Now, immediately within a week's time, by last week of December, the news started coming that Spain, Belgium, Italy, France also has this virus now, or this new strain. Then we immediately swung into action and made this quarantine compulsory for entire Europe. Then another strain, then a lot of these luxury airlines like Etihad, Emirates, then coming through Muscat, these flights, they all have halt at Middle East countries. So we had to ultimately then get these people also on board for home quarantine, for hotel quarantine, people coming from Middle East. Now, we are seriously thinking about it to withdraw the domestic regime at of RT-PCR at Mumbai airport, people coming from Delhi, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Goa, because now the situation is quite comfortable in those states. But as far as Europe is concerned, you know that most of Europe is still under lockdown. The other day, the Honorable Prime Minister of UK announced that the lockdown in UK may be extended till April end. Earlier, he was talking of March end, because they are getting 30 to 40,000 people positive every day. Like I said, 3 days back, they had 1,600 plus deaths, and the hospitals are absolutely overflowing. Beds are not available, and they have rationed oxygen and ventilators in UK. I was told by one of the senior doctors who met me 2 days back that each fellow is given ventilator over 2.5 days because so many people are waiting in the queue. Now, in this background, it is very difficult decision whether we should continue with this institutional quarantine for incoming passengers from Europe, or we should stop it. But we are just waiting that maybe in the next 2-3 weeks, the situation there becomes comfortable, like has happened in Delhi and Goa, then definitely I'll be the first person to recommend ease of these restrictions. But my apologies to everybody, but the issue is that we shouldn't take a chance when things are happening in front of us. Like I mentioned that today at 3 p.m. I saw on NDTV that there's another COVID surge in Dubai, and they are now closing down eating places and clubs and restaurants. In this background, when we have 34 flights coming every day from Dubai, what do we do? And it doesn't take in COVID to go from 100 to 1,000 to 10,000 to 1 lakh. It happens like wildfire. So we have to be a little cautious, maybe for another couple of weeks. And then even I agree with you that these restrictions must go as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That was a very comprehensive response and fantastic job. Keep going, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I
Please
go with
ahead
the
and ask your
permission?
question.
Yeah.
Sandeep, Mudit wanted to ask a question first. It's all right.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Mudit, go ahead.
Sir, you honor us with this award, sir. You are a very worthy recipient. And on
Thank
a
you, sir.
personal level, my wife also had a very good experience with BMC when she had them. They were very courteous and very helpful. So my question is a bit personal. How did you and your family cope with your being on the front lines all the time? I read somewhere that you said you sent your family to their maybe native town and you yourself were so involved. What were your emotions and how did you kind of, galvanize everyone into action, sir? Thank you, sir.
You know, I joined on 8th of May, and 9th May, I requested my wife and my son to go to Chandigarh, my hometown. And I said that like, I'll always be under a lot of stress that I shouldn't pass on COVID to you.
It's telling me to keep
Because I shouldn't pass on COVID to you because I'll be moving in slums day and night. First couple of days, like we were just roaming around here and there. So they were very nice and cooperative. they immediately decided to leave Mumbai and they moved on to our native place in Chandigarh, and I was alone in Mumbai till end of December. They joined me back in Jan only, this about 3 weeks back. So I was alone in the house, in my home. I was very reassured that I won't pass on this virus to my family if I'm getting it. But like I said, when I had made a commitment to my team on the first day I joined in those 5 hours meeting in an eyeball to eyeball contact, that we have to perform a parish, and I said it will apply equally to commissioner also. So I had no choice but to do my best and to take every possible risk. And believe you me, that I was prepared for the worst.
This is Gautam Mehta. Mr. President, with your permission, can I ask my question?
Please go ahead, Gautam.
Mr. Chahal, actually, history in future, there should be a book, like all generals, that how the war on COVID was fought in Mumbai. And thanks to the present commissioner for the fantastic job. It would make a great chapter in history. So our compliments to you. My question is this. Today, with the opening up and many things, trying to go back to normal, there is a particular class that is worried as to what has to happen to them and what is your advice to them. One is senior citizens and second with persons with comorbidity in terms of work and in terms of socializing. Because I believe that the norms are still in place which advise people over 60 and with comorbidities to avoid going out. Please, could you tell us something about this?
Yeah, I'll give 2 assurances in this. Number one is, the good news is that recently Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, they had informally told me that the slums of Mumbai, they have now attained almost 80% plus herd immunity. Because we are a very densely packed city, unlike other cities in the world, and that has been a blessing in disguise for us this time. Because of such a high density of population, the attainment of herd immunity has been faster here. And even in non-slums also, the herd immunity, we ordered a sero survey today morning. The reports will come very soon. But personally, I believe that even in non-slum areas also, we are nearing 60% herd immunity. So this, if a comorbid person or an elderly person, a respected citizen is not moving out of Mumbai, he is moving within Mumbai, this herd immunity in slum and non-slums is going to be a blessing for him. Secondly, our vaccination campaign is going to be now launched in full swing. In fact, I would like to spend a couple of minutes on vaccination because we are driving it very hard. And again, we want Mumbai to be number 1 in the country in vaccination drive, and how we handle it and how we make it very comfortable for everybody. The government of India has split the vaccination drive in 3 phases. And as all my eminent friends present here would be aware, the government of India has decided that there will be single window outsourcing of vaccine in the country from manufacturing units. The government of India only can buy this vaccine. Whether it is Serum Institute, whether it's Hyderabad, whether some other new vaccine coming in, there's only one single buyer would be there. That is government of India. Like tomorrow, BMC cannot buy from Serum Institute, or government of Maharashtra cannot buy, or any citizen cannot buy. And it's good also because when you're running such a massive vaccination campaign, the largest in the world, you need to have some discipline. So there, I appreciate government of India's thought behind this. So government of India said that in the phase 1 and phase 2, we will cover 30 million people in the country, 3 crores. And that should finish by 15th March. And the first phase, which is going to end by 15th February, another 10 days, that is our 1.8 lakh health workers in Mumbai city. Like in Mumbai, we have 1.8 lakh healthcare workers, and we have already done 55,000 till now. And there were some initial hiccups with the CoWIN app, which Government of India has created. Like, first of all, we have all data with us. We have to upload this data on the CoWIN app, and then CoWIN app automatically spaces the people as per daily targets and starts sending you a SMS. That Mr. Chahal, your turn is coming day after tomorrow. Please come to the hospital. So there is some hiccup, some initial teething problems in the CoWIN app all over the country. So those things are getting sorted out. That is how we are moving slowly from say 1,500 vaccine every day to almost 10,000 in a day or two. Yesterday we were 7,000 plus. Tomorrow we will be about 9,000. So we are building upon that. Although today in Mumbai we can do 50,000 in a day. We have 500 teams ready, and we can even achieve a target of 50,000 vaccinations in a day once these apps start getting into shape. So this, but still with the present pace, by 15th of Feb, we will vaccinate all our 1.84 lakh healthcare workers, and they deserved it because they were in the front line. Hundreds of doctors have sacrificed their life. So we need to take care of them. And phase 2 is started today. In some states it started yesterday, but we started today. And in phase 2, we are covering all frontline workers. And here I must say that in this war against this invisible COVID, in BMC, we had more than 6,000 people who became COVID positive, our own colleagues. And we lost 297 colleagues in this fight against COVID. 196 from BMC and 101 BSc best drivers. You know, we have paid a very heavy price. That is why I say, I salute Team BMC the way they rose to the occasion and they took on this virus and they chased this virus. So the second phase covers them, the frontline workers, like our ward boys, bus drivers, other employees, the scavenging staff. That is roughly 300,000. So that we have started in parallel since today in Mumbai, and we are doubling up our efforts by 4th of every day after tomorrow, when we should touch almost 15,000 cases every day. We plan to complete phase 1 and phase 2 by 15th of March, and then phase 3 starts. Phase 3 will cover everybody above 50 years of age. And we already started, when we did this My Family, My Responsibility campaign, we have a list of almost 30 lakh people, 3 million in Mumbai. That was another advantage of this campaign, that we gathered data on 3 million people who are 50 plus in Mumbai. We have the names, we have their age, we have all the data with us. So the moment Government of India gives a green signal, we'll start uploading this 30 lakh 50 plus data on our CoWIN, because we are doing all this uploading through our data entry operators. But I'm sure then Government of India also will open this window for a common person to directly upload also. This is what we are expecting. So this is subject to the Government of India's directions, which are likely to come in due course of time. And then 15 March onwards, we'll go whole hog. And that is where we plan to take lots of private hospitals also on board, subject again to Government of India's clearance. And we already collecting data from private hospitals. 16 major hospitals have already qualified to be on board with us as per the data supplied by them. For the others, the data is coming in, and in next maybe week, 10 days time, we'll have many more hospitals on board. Because in Mumbai, our principle is that every single booth where a person is getting vaccinated, it will have an ICU backup in the next room. We will not take any chance. Even today, this 55,000 people whom we have vaccinated, there's not a single human soul who was vaccinated and he didn't have ICU in the next room. That is why we are not stepping out of hospitals to vaccinate people at non-ICU places. Initially, we are taking care and we are seeing how things will unfold in the first couple of months. But luckily, things are absolutely fine. We don't have a single adverse case with us till today out of the 55,000. And I was very confident because we did the trials of Covishield in the month of July, August. We did thousands of trials for the company and as per directions of ICMR. And out of the thousands of trials which we did in July, August, those trials are almost 7 months old now. Even there is no adverse case with us. So I really want to assure you that each one of us, we must take this vaccine. And the doors are going to open by 15th of March. Then we'll cover up our people as fast as possible to vaccinate them and make them COVID-proof in the coming months. And but as a person heading Team BMC, who has been part of the trials of Covaxin also and Covishield also in various Mumbai hospitals in the month of July, August, September, and October, November also, there is absolutely no reason why we should shy away. We must take this vaccine. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you, sir.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you. Fali, may I go now, or may I say what
Go
I have
ahead.
to say?
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Sandeep.
Good evening, Mr. Chahal. My name is Sandeep Agarwala. I'm past
Good evening.
president and district governor nominee.
Good evening, sir.
I must say that I've been a member of this club for over 30 years, much more than 30 years. Every year we institute this Citizen of Mumbai Award. And after hearing you, I can see no better person or worthy person who has received this award in all the years
you.
I've been
Thank
a
you very
member.
much.
So congratulations. And please accept a most grateful thanks for a very, very lucid and a very clearly thought out strategy and presentation to us, which is actually, I can't sing in enough accolades about what you have done. So our
Thank you,
grateful thanks to you once again, sir, and your team. Now, I just wanted to briefly apprise you of the important role the Rotary and our Rotary Club of Bombay has played during the crisis. I'm sure you heard of in very general terms, but I would like to, as one of the persons involved with our team, we had a large team working on the COVID crisis, and I would like to apprise you what we have done. The Rotary Club of Bombay supplied 13.5 lakh hot packed meals through the first 4 months of crisis on a daily basis, numbering between 30 to 40,000 meals a day. We also provided hot meals to Malegaon when we got a request from the police department that there was a crisis there during the Ramzan time. We also sent 100,000 ready-to-cook food packets to Malegaon at that time to alleviate their problems. Other than that, we have supplied more than 60 ventilators to various hospitals around Mumbai. We have given more than 30 high-flow nasal cannula machines of the best quality to various hospitals around Mumbai. And then, seeing a serious crisis in dialysis, we have given more than 30 dialysis West German machines to hospitals around Mumbai. And let me tell you, this is in addition to the thousands of PPE kits, visors, sanitizers, name it, which we had initially started giving, but then we started concentrating on more on the long-term cures rather than the short-term cures because we thought that was better place. Our efforts with COVID will continue, sir, and we will do whatever it takes. The Rotary as a movement in India is now associating with the government for the rollout of the vaccine. We'll be very happy to play any role. You know our sterling role in the polio vaccination efforts, how we've initiated it. We have the experience, we have the network, and we have the membership and the drive and desire to assist any governmental effort, whether it's at the BMC level or at the Maharashtra government level, sir. So please carry this missive with you. And if there's anything we can do, we are at your service. Thank you once again.
So thank you very much on behalf of BMC and on behalf of citizens of Mumbai. I thank Rotary Club for being such a great help in the crisis time. And I really appreciate and I salute your efforts. And I must put on record here that I dedicate this award today to Team BMC, the 100,000 people who are part of Team BMC. And I dedicate this award to our additional commissioners, our joint commissioners, deputy commissioners, assistant commissioners, ward officials, health officials, and especially to those 297 colleagues of ours who laid down their life in this fight against COVID in the last 10 months. So I very humbly dedicate this award to them.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Chahal, we have a few more questions if you're willing to take some.
Yeah, I'm willing, sir.
Fali,
Thank
can
you.
I go ahead?
Just a minute. We have Ms. Kamal Bindra here.
Yes, sir, I'm right here.
go
Sorry, I
ahead.
haven't got my video on.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, this is Iqbal Chahal.
Good evening, Iqbal. How are you?
Thank you.
I have been on the slide for sending messages to everybody about your family
Thank you.
and how your son
They're
receives
fine.
us not Arjun, how he receives us not with a har of flowers. He does whoosh whoosh with his spray before I even enter his doorstep.
Right.
But all the paranoia and all the fear, this 2020 has been very traumatic for the family.
Correct.
Left to us, we would have smuggled you and hijacked you and kidnapped you and brought you back to Chandigarh.
Right.
But anyway, such is life. Thank you, Iqbal, for all your effort.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bindra. Can we have Manjeet please ask your question? Manjeet, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Fali. Mr. Chahal, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we do hope you'll write the book. The continuing story of Mumbai from this should be that we should have affordable housing. And
Yes.
so I ask you, what is the plan for that? And just personally, I know you're a swimmer and we're waiting for the pools to open.
Yeah. First, second question first. There are only two things left: schools and the pool.
Yes.
I assure you, they'll open the next few days only, both of them.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah. And the first question, what was the first question?
Affordable housing.
Yeah.
Housing for everyone. So we
yes,
don't have
yes, yes.
slums.
In fact, I must share with you that before joining as BMC commissioner, the government had transferred me from irrigation department in the month of February 20 and had made me principal secretary urban development.
Oh, great.
So I was in urban development in February, March, April until 8th of May. And there I could visualize the sad state of affairs of Mumbai's real estate and the real estate sector for the last couple of years, not couple of months. And then suddenly COVID came, it became another blow on them. So I have been talking to government and Honorable Chief Minister, sir, Honorable Aditya Thackeray, sir. I said, we must put life back into Mumbai's real estate, because real estate in Mumbai is the backbone of the city, the housing sector, the real estate sector. And let me share what all we have done. In fact, the Mumbai Chamber of Housing Industry, MCHI, they met me last week. They said, sir, what we have done the last few months, the golden days of real estate is back. I'll tell you why it is happening. Number one, we prevailed upon the government and reduced under the Stamps and Registration Act, the stamp duty from 6% to 2%. Then BMC was earning something like 4,000 crore rupees every year from various premiums. We charge 22 types of premiums from anybody who approaches us for building permissions and things like that, for buying additional premium or for some open space deficiency or some conversion issues or some staircase issues or some additional height issues and things like that. We took a decision that we will slash them by 50% and we'll take a hit of almost 2,000 crore rupees per year. But my belief was that this will put life back into real estate, and a lot of projects, they'll become viable. An average one housing project involving 500 flats need to pay about 50 crores of premium upfront when he gets the permissions. So he'll straight away get 25 crore benefit. So there was a lot of resistance to this, but we prevailed upon the government. And I convinced all my elected office bearers of BMC. It took them in writing from all political parties and they unanimously gave me in writing that let us slash premiums on 22 types of premiums by 50%. That is already done, and orders have been issued with cabinet approval. Then BMC had thousands of crores of rupees in terms of deposits of various contractors and developers, because we were charging 5% security deposit for every contract and 5% performance guarantee. So the lots of money was locked up. We got this to 2% each. 6% money was unlocked and paid back to them to flush it back in the real estate. And hundreds of crores of rupees got unlocked. So we created that sort of a liquidity into the real estate sector. And then last but not the least, we created a system that no developer shall meet BMC commissioner. I have stopped meeting them. I made them a promise that all files shall be online, right from a junior engineer to municipal commissioner's desk. Whether you want to redevelop a building, whether you want to build a new building, whether you want to alter your, do some renovation, whether you want to add some additional floors, whether you want to build a new 70, 80-story buildings, it will be faceless clearance. So I said that every Friday evening, there shall be zero pendency. And we have maintained this for the last 22 weeks, till the last Friday. And this can be cross-checked from MCI, Naradco, or Piata, these organizations. Now, we have been clearing all projects which are coming to us, absolutely making every weekend a zero pendency case in the office of the municipal commissioner. And I shouldn't boast, but this is unprecedented in the history of BMC, the last 50, 60 years, that every Friday we are keeping zero pendency. So this has removed a lot of bottlenecks, a lot of red tapeism, a lot of delays, and the kind of benefit which the real estate people have got in terms of reduction in premiums, reduction in things like registration charges getting reduced, and faster clearances. For example, I'll tell you one major project in Vadala of a very big developer is building hundreds of flats there, more than 400 flats. It's a redevelopment project. So he had to pay a premium of 500 crores to BMC. And they had met me in July. They said our project is not viable, and this project was lingering on since 2004. They said we won't like to touch it. The moment they realized that the premium now is going to be 250 crores, and there's going to be 250 crore rebate, they are after me for clearances as soon as possible. The same project has become highly viable. And this is a story of every project which is you see lying incomplete here and there. So this is really going to put life back into real estate in the next coming 3-4 months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Ian Pinto, you want to say something?
Yeah. Hi, this is Dr. Pinto, Ian Pinto. Thank you for the excellent job that you have done. My question is on vaccination. So I did take my vaccine on the 3rd day at Nair Hospital. And again, thank you for the seamless process. It was very smooth. I've coming, to Nair after a long time, and it went through really well. My question to you is, we have really excellent private healthcare systems like, Jaslok, Breach Candy, Saifi, who have already, pulled up their sleeves and worked for the pandemic. I think there's initially there were less healthcare workers getting it, but now some of the centers look like they're already overwhelmed, especially because anyway, government centers are pretty overwhelmed with the number of patients they see. So when will you all be using, the private healthcare, systems, hospitals, so that they can hasten the process of getting all their workers immunized, so that the first phase goes much faster?
Yeah.
Thana has done it already, I think. But
yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Like I just mentioned, the government of India is a single window for procurement of vaccines from any source whatsoever. And then the distribution of vaccines and the SOPs are decided with the government of India, Ministry of Health. So right now, for the phase 1 and phase 2, the instructions are very clear from government of India not to involve any private hospital in the entire country. Forget about Mumbai. The whole of India, including Delhi, not a single private hospital is on board as on today for the first lot of 3 crore healthcare workers and frontline workers. But I, at my own level, I have assumed that when you need to vaccinate 135 crore people in the country, it is impossible without support of private sector and private hospitals. So without waiting for government of India's directions, we started compiling a database of all possible private hospitals which can get on board at a minute's notice. And like you just mentioned, 16 major hospitals, they have already fulfilled our criteria and paperwork they have done, and they already stand selected at our level, subject to further clearance from Government of India one day.
I see.
And maybe by end of February, we may have another 40, 50 major hospitals of Mumbai adding to the 16. Our objective ultimately is to get all those 130 hospitals on board who are with me on the single dashboard. 75 almost the smaller hospital and 35 major hospitals which are on board with us, and some other smaller one nursing homes. We'll get everybody on board. Right now, we are collecting data, putting them in queue, and the moment Government of India SOPs permits us, I'll be the fastest person to get them on board.
Thank you.
We have Dr. Amita Brar, who wishes to say something.
Hello, Iqbal.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ji.
Good evening. I have years ago complimented Mr. Chattha that you made the right choice in a son-in-law, and today I want to compliment the BMC for making the absolute right choice. You have given us a lot of hope for COVID. You've done work hands-on. We are so proud of you.
Thank you very much.
Kudos to you.
Iqbal, this is Sunamika. Well done. Keep it up. And so inspiring to see the work you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mr. Chahal, my daughter has a question. When are schools going to start?
Well, you know, they should be starting very soon in next few days.
Oh.
Not few weeks, few days only.
Oh, and for all the standards or only for the higher ones or something of that sort?
Well, you know, in the Mumbai model, right from the time we opened the first shop on one single side of the street, we have been very graded in our opening. But I'm happy to say that whatever was opened was never closed again. Whether it is shops or malls or gyms or saloons or religious places or now railway step by step. Here also, we would like to go in a graded fashion. We are initially planning to open class 10th and class 12th immediately, so that they can be comfortable in the board exams after 1 or 2 months. And then we keep on adding them at a faster pace, other classes.
Thank you for the response.
Yeah. Well, we have time for one more question. That's from Mayank Kumar. Mayank?
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Mayank.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Mr. Chahal, thank you for the excellent work you and your team have done. I have 2 questions. One is, we still read about a lag between the number of vaccinations being done and the target. So is there any policy of permitting walk-ins, just general walk-ins rather than just only healthcare walk-ins to get inoculated to meet up the target? And the second question is, you mentioned about how the sterilization efforts across the slums had a major impact on mitigating other diseases during the monsoons and otherwise. So is there a plan to carry that learning forward permanently as a standard procedure in Bombay?
Thank you, sir. You have asked very relevant and important questions. I thank you for that. You know, right now, the Government of India has given us very clear instructions that every person we vaccinate amongst the healthcare workers or the frontline workers from today onwards, we need to upload their Aadhaar card online. So Government of India is keeping account of number of vaccines or doses used and the number of uploading done. So maybe like once we have done say 200,000 cases by 15th of February, the Government of India would have Aadhaar card wise each and every case before them. So in this, if we try to adjust some walk-in people, we'll be caught on wrong foot by Government of India and we'll be violating their guidelines, which I absolutely don't intend to do so. So considering this regime of Government of India, right now, it will be difficult to accommodate walk-in people for vaccine. But I'm sure the way stocks are building up of vaccines and considering the enormous number of phase 3, I'm sure these things will start happening. Number 2, regarding sanitation, in fact, I have been telling this exactly what you told me to my team BMC, that instead of people getting sick with dengue or malaria or leptospirosis and then spending crores and crores of rupees on them in treatment in hospitals and spending public money, it is better to spend even half of that money in sanitizing this slum and getting rid of these issues permanently. So like we started the practice of sanitizing each and every slum toilet 6 times in a day from once in a day. So you'll be happy that today also that practice goes on. It will be continuing in future also. It may cost us a couple of crore rupees in a year, but it will take care of maybe hundreds of crores we spend on the treatment later on. And plus, it addresses the well-being and health of our citizens, our brothers and sisters.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chahal. Unfortunately, due to paucity of time, we'll have to shut the meeting shortly. I can't thank you enough for everything that you've been doing for us and continue to do for us. Thank you so much. May I now request Honorary Secretary Satyan Israni to please propose the official vote of thanks.
With pleasure, Fali. Chahal Sahab, it is said that a leader is one who knows the way, shows the way, and goes the way. You epitomize this quote by being actively involved on the ground level on real-time basis in the hour of crisis and leading by example. From an atmosphere of despair in March and April, you turned it around to one of hope and eventually victory. Hats off to you, sir. You truly are not just the pride of Mumbai, but of India, and we are deeply grateful for your service. Chahal Sahab, as a token of our appreciation for this evening that you have spent with us, you've really spent a lot of time with us today. We will, on your behalf, light up a rural household using solar power. And
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
We'll send you the certificate also shortly.
Thank you very much.